Hi, welcome to Komodo Art Soaps. Today we're going to do a little bit of playing with our soap. So if you remember, I did a video on doing wood grain soap. One of the reasons I wanted to make wood grain soap in the first place was because I've seen videos of people putting in blue epoxy or rainbow epoxy or different colored epoxies into the cracks of beautiful soap and making beautiful creations with them. And it's one of those things I would love to be able to do on my own. But I'm not a woodworker. I don't have those kind of tools in my home. I've never worked with epoxy. But I'm wondering if we can do the same thing with wood grain soap, which I do have the tools for. So let's play around and see what we can come up with. The very first thing we need are cracks in our soap. So I'm using some of my son's clay tools to work on making some cracks in our soap. We're going to try several different kinds of cracks here. So the very first one I'm going to do is just going to be a crack straight down the middle of this soap here. And this soap was made, I believe, a week and a half ago. I'll have to check my records to verify that. So it is still quite soft in the center. But I don't know if you can see what I'm doing here. I'm just kind of doing almost like a Harry Potter scar down the center of the soap. It seems such a shame to ruin this beautiful soap, doesn't it? But sometimes you have to sacrifice a little bit in order to discover new things. And don't worry, I'm not going to waste the scraps that we cut out. I will be using those as part of this project. Alright, so I have a nice little crack there. I'm going to gouge up along the center of the inside the crack, and the reason for that is because I want to give the melt and pour something to adhere to. That looks good for that. I'm wondering if we should add, let's add a crack along the side as well. And maybe just a hairline sliver crack here. This one here, I am going to take a clay wire and just cut right down the middle. Ooh, maybe this would be easier. Oh, here we go. It's working. Or maybe not. Oh, come through. Here it comes. Alright, so we've split this one right down the center. We're just going to make a design in the back here for that melt and pour to peek out of. And, you know, sometimes you get those knots in the wood that fall out, so we'll just kind of mimic that shape. So when this has the melt and pour in it, it will run along the sides and peek out through the bottom here. We're going to make this one look kind of like a river going through the soap. I'm not wearing gloves because this soap is not sold. I don't sell my soaps currently, and I'm not giving this one away because, well, I might give it away to family. But this is an experimental soap, so I don't see the need to waste plastic gloves on something that I am not selling or giving away to, you know, someone that's not family. Okay, so that's a pretty good crevasse we have there. We'll just add another little divot along the side here. Maybe make it look like a heart. For this one, I would like to do a broken bar. So we're just going to break it along the side here. Try to get it to look like natural wood break there. Alright, we want to fill this with melt and pour, but we need to make sure that the melt and pour doesn't just leak straight out of it. So to keep that from happening, we're just going to use regular old packaging tape. And we are going to tape nice and flat along the bottom. Try to create a seal there. Ooh, it's sticky. Alright, I'm going to hold my bars slightly separate from each other and then pull the tape up and just try to create a seal while keeping that crack. And then I'm leaving a space to pour the melt and pour. And then just to make sure that it stays put, I'm going to put another piece of tape around this way. But I want to be careful not to squeeze that crack shut either. This one, we don't need to have any tape around. So if you're too scared of doing the tape and you're afraid something's gonna leak, you can always just do this. That's the only spot where it might leak out, but I can actually just put a little bit of cold process scrap over there to seal that off. And this one will just lay flat and fill, so that one's done. So we have 3 strips of tape just gently overlapping each other. And then we're going to set our soap so that it's close, but not too close to each other. Get it close. All right, now we're going to pull these over. That gives, as long as I have an opening to the crack, I'm good there. And then we want to pull the tape up on the bottom as flat as we can and kind of seal it, almost like you do with a, you know, the corrugated plastic molds. You're going to kind of peek the corners out like that. So let me show you this way. You're just going to flatten it against the soap and tuck it into the corners there. We have our soaps ready for our melt and pour, so let's see if we can make this work. These are the colors we're working with today. This was the rainbow sampler from Brambleberry here with Queen's Purple Mica, Kelly Green, Buttercup, Raspberry, Racing Stripe, and Caribbean Blue. This is the King's Gold Mica that came with the Christmas sampler pack from Brambleberry, and I'm thinking I want to do one with just a solid streak of gold through it. I think that would be really pretty. I'd like to try to make this look like a rainbow river. And that would be way too difficult to do by pouring in the melt and pour. So I'm going to try painting in the dry melt and pour into here and then pouring the melt and pour on top. So the colors of the rainbow are Roy G. Biv. So we're going to start with red. Just going to dip my paintbrush in there. Ooh, I should have softened up my paintbrush first. I haven't pulled these paintbrushes out since Thanksgiving. Every Thanksgiving, it's our tradition to paint Christmas ornaments after we've eaten the Thanksgiving feast. So that adheres quite nicely. I'm hoping this will work. Next we'll go in with the orange. All right, we've got the yellow in there. Next we'll go with green. Now the blue, there is almost nothing in there, so I'm hoping we'll get enough from this to make a visible streak of blue. I am quite a bit of a hoarder, I must say. And so I thought about throwing these away, and I thought, well, there's still stuff in there, and I'm glad I didn't throw it away because I think I'm going to have enough, just enough to do this. All right, and then let's do the purple. And for the heart, should we do a gold heart? Let's do a gold heart. I'll just paint some of that. All right, let's melt a little bit of melt and pour it in and see if it will blend in with those colors without us having to stir it too much. The clearest melt and pour I have on hand right now is the Brambleberry Aloe. So I'm just going to cut this up into small cubes and melt it for the melt and pour. And I'll pop that into the microwave, and then we will pour it into the crack. So when melting this small amount of melt and pour, you really want to be careful. It took only 15 seconds, and it was already starting to bubble up and might have overflown the bowls. So I'm going to spray my melt and pour as well as my crack with rubbing alcohol just to try to remove any bubbles. I want to help that rainbow color come through, so I'm just going to try to agitate the soap in the mold a little bit. So we'll set this one aside and go on to the next one. Let me spray it with a little bit of alcohol. Okay. For the next one, let's do this big guy, and we're going to fill him with gold melt and pour. I love the look of mica in melt and pour. It just looks so shimmery and beautiful. If I were to use this gold mica in cold process, it would just give me kind of a dull yellow look. So it's already trying to goop up on me, so I'm going to Microwave it for just a little bit more. Okay, I put this in the microwave to reheat it, and my goodness, I did it for just over 5 seconds and it overflowed all over the microwave. So I don't know if we'll have enough in here, but let's try it. We can always add a little extra. And I've melted just a little bit more, and I'm just using the gold that was left over in the bowl, so it's very, very faint. Let me spritz it before we pour it in. So this is the one we have taped up the most. It's going to have the crack running all along the side and have that hole in the center. So we're going to fill this with a purple melt and pour. Ooh, look at that. So beautiful. Alright, let's pour this in. I'm just pouring it onto the spoon and holding the spoon on the edge of the crack. Oh, once again, not enough melt and pour. It's oozing out a little bit in the corners, so that's what I wasn't expecting. Hold on. Alright, we've made up just a little bit more. We'll pour it down the crack. And we had enough to fill it. Alright. Alright, for this last one, I thought we would use green. And then I'm going to spray in there just to help it adhere to the sides, hopefully. Set my spoon next to the crack. And then pour onto the spoon. There we go, and then we'll just fill up this little crack here. And then we have the crack on the side we need to fill, but we've got to wait for this to harden first. While I was sitting around, I was goofing off and kind of just scratched in this design into one of the bars of soap. So let's fill that up with some of we have a lot of this green soap left. Let's see if we have enough to fill this in. With this, I'm just going to pour it down the center. Ooh, that's kind of pretty just as it is. So what about all these wood grain scraps, right? I said we wouldn't let them go to waste. So another epoxy type craft that I see a lot on YouTube is where they take wood shavings and they suspend them in clear epoxy and then have someone usually turn it into a bowl or a vase or some other type of object. So we're going to take these wood shavings and we are going to suspend them in clear melt and pour and make a bar of soap. And we're just going to stick them in there and then pour in the clear melt and pour and hope, cross our fingers, that it turns out beautiful. So I will be right back with some melt and pour. We're just going to pour that. I'm just going to try to stick those down in there. Kind of jostle them, try to get air bubbles out. Looks like we got some hiding in there. So who knows, we might have this thing full of air bubbles, but it's just an experiment. I just want to show you kind of the reality of this project. It's a messy project. It's the next day, and we are back down in my soaping room since we don't need the microwave. It's time to unwrap our experiment. I kept them wrapped in plastic wrap so that the melt and pour wouldn't sweat. This is a previous melt and pour project I did, and if you can see the little white specks all over the surface here, melt and pour does tend to dewdrop here because I live in a humid climate. So when we talk about melt and pour sweating, it just means melt and pour has a humectant in it and it attracts moisture. So it will actually pull moisture from the surrounding air and bead up on the surface of the melt and pour. But if you keep it wrapped in plastic, it won't do that. All right, we're just going to unwrap all of these soaps so that we can clean them up. All of our soaps have been unwrapped and they definitely need to be cleaned up. They're just a tad bit raw around the edges. I actually love this part of soaping because I feel when you clean up a bar of soap, it just tends to look so much nicer. So we're just going to take off a thin layer. Ooh, that's so pretty. So just cut off the top here. We're going to try and go as thin as we possibly can. This is where a soap planer would come in very handy. And I've actually asked for one for my birthday. I probably could have waited a few weeks to do this project when I actually have my soap planer, because my birthday is in May. But I am not a patient person, and I don't like to wait. So, ooh, but look how pretty that looks. Now we'll do the gold one. I'm actually really excited about this one. Thought I'd try changing the angle on the camera so that maybe you can see more of these cuts I'm making. Oops. Here's the rainbow one. Ooh, that turned out really pretty. And here's that experimental one that should have the design underneath the melt and pour. Ooh, look at that. That turned out fun. The last one we have. Oops. Ah! Oh, that's so cool, you guys. Look at that. I'm wearing my gloves so that we don't get fingerprints on it. Thanks for stopping by and sharing this soap adventure with me today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, and if you'd like to see more, please hit the like and subscribe button. Hit the bell notification so that you'll be notified next time I do a soap experiment. And if you have any suggestions for me to try, share them down below in the comments. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you next time.